In this picture, I want to move the pigeon. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the pigeon by holding Alt and turning the mouse wheel and then pressing the space bar and dragging the picture so you can see it. Now this picture the pigeon overlaps with this high contrast edge of shadow here at the tree shadow, and I don't like that. I'd like the pigeon to be in its own space in the green grassy area here. Now I've already done a little bit of preparation. You can see in the layers panel, if I click off the background copy layer, the top layer, I've taken out a couple of leaves in that area which I thought would distract when I move the pigeon. So I'm going to zoom right in to the pigeon here. Now I'm going to work on a new layer. I don't want to mess up the layer I did my cloning on, although I could do. I definitely don't want to work on the original layer. And what I'm going to do actually this time, I could make another copy of this cloned layer and work on this. But what I'm going to do this time, to show you something slightly different, is to create a new layer, which is this little icon here next to the rubbish bin. So if I click on that, I get a new and an empty layer. If I click off the other two layers, I've got an empty layer. So the Content Aware Move shares with the other healing tools. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down in the toolbox. And you may see any of these as the little icon here, depending on what's used last. So don't depend on necessarily seeing the sticking plaster. But two below the clone tool makes it easy to find. So the Content Aware Move tool is this one with the 2 arrows. And what I do for this is I select the bird first. Now I don't actually need to use the Content Aware tool to do the selection. I could use another selection tool such as Quick Select. But since I'm here and since I've got it, I will use this. Now, having tried this before, I know that I need to try and keep away from the shadow area. I need to try and select really close to the pigeon on its back and not get the shadow, because if I'm moving the pigeon into the grassy area, I don't want a black patch on its back, which originally came from the shadow. But having done that carefully, I can do the rest of it not so carefully. I want to be close to the thing, so that I don't corrupt or mess up too much of the picture, but I don't need to be particularly close to it. It may be a little bit fiddly round the beak, so I'm just going to avoid that for now. And I've drawn my selection, and you can see that I get the dancing ants or the marching ants. And like I say, it is just an ordinary selection. So I need to remember I'm on a blank layer here. There's actually no pigeon and no content on this layer. And so what I need to do is up here on the toolbar, I need to make sure that Sample All Layers is ticked. If it weren't ticked, let's take that tick out and try it. I'm going to drag the pigeon and immediately I get this error message that says could not move the selection because the selected area is empty. If you get error messages saying the area is empty, it may well be because you're on a blank layer in other things as well. So let's get rid of that, say Sample All Layers. So other things up here, I want to move it rather than extend it. Structure 7, adjust how strictly the source structure is preserved. So by that, it means the grass, it means the stuff around the pigeon. And I want that preserved, really. I don't want it blended in because I'm moving it, the grass, well, the pigeon and the grass around it from one area to another, more grass. So I'm quite happy if grass stays the same. The other thing is colour, which is also to do with blending. Just how much the source colour can be modified. Well, I don't really want it to be modified or blended in because I'm moving it a short distance to something very much the same colour, so I don't need it to go blending for me. So let's move the pigeon and see what happens. Nothing happens to start with, but let's try moving it there. And I had transform on drop selected, which means I have this transform box around it. I need to complete the transform by clicking the tick, and it's done it. So I could have, when I had that transform box around it, I could have resized it if I'd wanted to, but because I was moving at such a short distance, I didn't need to resize it. I'm going to get rid of the dancing ants, Control D, Command D, or Select Deselect, and see what I think about that. Now that's not bad at all. I moved the shadow with it. Did you notice I selected its shadow as well? It's always good to zoom out. I did Control 0 to zoom out. It looks reasonably realistic. I think it's got a bit of a problem of a black head. And also, I think I might move it very slightly. Now, by putting it on its own layer like this, I can go to the Move tool and just drag it. And I'm moving it. I'm moving the patched area with it as well. So if I wanted to move it, I would actually need to copy the pigeon to yet a new layer that was on a different layer from the patched background and just move the pigeon, which I might do in the next video. So I'm fairly happy with that. The only thing is it does have this sort of black halo around its head, which I'd like to do a little bit of work on. I could try the eraser tool with that. I'm going to use the layer mask, in fact, which is the one that looks like the washing machine at the bottom of the layers panel. So making sure that the layer I want to work on, the layer with my pigeon, is selected, and I can turn it off to check that it is. That was where it was before, and that's where it is now. Now the layer mask is selected. It's got the white angles, the white corners around it. So I'm going to use the brush tool, so down in the toolbox. That's the one below the healing tools, in fact. And where I want to hide this black here, the black halo, I'm going to paint black colour onto it. And I see my battery's running out, so excuse me for a second. Are we plugged in? Yes, okay. So I'm going to brush onto the black halo, but on the layer mask, so that should hide it. So the brush I'm going to use looks about the right size. It does need to be reasonably hard, but with the softest edge. It's a bit trial and error really, but I took that down a little bit. So now I'm brushing onto the layer mask, and it's a little bit tricky, but I'm just going slowly and doing it in lots of small goes, because then it's easier to undo. If I do the whole thing in one go and just mess up at the end, then I've got to undo all of it. But if I do it in lots of little goes, then I can just undo the latest one. So it's not perfect. However, I think it's good enough. If I now zoom out, it looks fine to me. I can't see that level of detail. And if I zoom in a bit, I think that's fine. If I wanted to do a better job, I would select inside the pigeon and do it that way. But I think for now, I'm going to be happy with that. So over in the layers panel, if I turn on and off this top layer, you can see how I've moved the pigeon. And that will do me for now. I will save it. Now, I think I'm happy with this picture. I'll do save as, but I'm going to save it as a JPEG. No, I'm not. I'm going to save it as a PSD because I said that I would have a go at moving the pigeon and not the clone area. So I'll do that in another video. So I will save it as a PSD file, and Photoshop will want to save it as a PSD. So I think I will just put the name on. Content aware move, I'll say pigeon moved, so that it's easy to find next time. And I shall leave it at there.